Hello all, welcome back to the class. So in this class, we are going to talk about the kind of interview questions people can ask you while you are applying for ServiceNow system administrator role. Now, of course, the list of questions is quite subjective, right? So anybody can ask any question. So of course, nobody can tell you that this is what will be asked. But having experienced the ServiceNow for a good amount of time, having taken interview, having appeared for interviews, I have a fair amount of idea in terms of what kind of questions are being asked. Now, there are some questions which are there on, you can find on internet also. There are a lot of questions. They're more of what type questions, which means they'll ask you what is a business rule, what is CMDB, what is client script. Yeah. So we will not be covering those questions which are quite obvious in nature in terms of what is what, because this is expected from a ServiceNow system administrator, because he has done that ServiceNow fundamentals course already. He has passed a certificate, which means he has a basic amount of idea in terms of what is what. So you can always find those kind of questions on internet very easily. I'll go into those kind of questions. I'll take some different questions which are more related to your day-to-day activities, right? And they'll also cover your basic understanding in terms of how well do you understand system and how well can you do things there, right? So what I've done is I've kind of categorized questions in 2 or 3 categories. One is the generic question set, which is everybody asking those questions by default. Then I have a set of techno-functional questions. There also I've divided into 2 different categories. One is basic, second is little advanced, right? It means it gives both of you, the interviewer and interviewee, a good amount of idea. But if somebody is able to answer advanced questions also, which means he is quite fit for the job, he has done a lot of things already, apart from being a basic system administrator, right? And then you'll have module specific questions. I mean, you'll have questions for ServiceNow ITSM separately. You'll have questions of ServiceNow ITOM, ServiceNow CSM. There are so many production modules. We have talked about ServiceNow already. We will not go much into the product specific questions because this particular session is for ServiceNow system administrator role, the kind of training we've done already. I think we should be able to answer all these questions. Right. What I'll do is I'll read all the questions. I'll give you my kind of answer, and then how should you speak those answers in the interview session. That's the whole idea, right? So if you see on the screen right now, I have some generic questions. Now, these generic questions, ideally, the answers of these questions should automatically be obvious from your profile or resume. I mean, the interviewer, whoever the interviewer is, he still asks these questions just to kind of reconcile in terms of what he has seen on your resume and what you're telling right now. So which means that whatever you've written on the resume, you should be speaking in the same language. You should be talking the same things. You should not be telling something that is not written in the profile and you're still talking about it. Yeah, there may be some value-added things which you've done beyond what you've written, which is obvious, but you're supposed to know at least whatever is in a profile that you should be able to at least talk about. That's the whole idea. For example, if you say that I've worked on ServiceNow ITOM and somebody asks you basic questions in ITOM and you have not done it, not able to answer those questions, which means there is a problem. You've kind of done some mistakes somewhere, right? So be very careful about this concept that whenever you're giving any interview, and again, forget about ServiceNow for time being. When I'm talking about this interview session, it is valid for everybody, right? Because the concept remains same in terms of what an interviewer wants to judge within you. What is it that you want to tell him, right? So it's all about the kind of job you have, first of all, you're applying for. So your profile should be revolving around that particular thing. Maybe you know quite a lot, you might have done quite a lot in your life already, but if that profile does not require much of that kind of knowledge, you may be just talking about 1 or 2 lines in that particular case. You should not be talking an essay, especially for those cases, which is not expected from this particular job role. However, when you are appearing for a particular job, it should at least reflect whatever you have done in that particular job role. For example, roles and responsibilities in terms of what kind of ecosystem you're working on. So let's see some questions there. So far, I've just given you a basic idea in terms of how the questions are structured. What are some obvious things that you should take care of, right? And you should be confident whatever you're saying, because if you have done something already, it is just about narrating that story there in front of the interviewer, right? So, for example, the first question says, "Tell me about yourself." Now, in this question, this is I think, the most common question in any interview. You appear for any profile in this world. I think that is most obviously the first question which generally people ask. And this is where you're supposed to give them answer in such a way that you talk about yourself a little bit. You talk about your roles and responsibilities a little bit, your experience range, where have you done what, at a very high level. You don't need to go into quite detail in there, because it is just a kind of 2-minute type of question. You don't need to answer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes on this question, right? The main thing which you have to take care while answering this question is whatever job role you're applying for, whatever roles and responsibilities you're looking for in that particular job, you should be focusing your answer towards that particular thing. For example, if this is a role of ServiceNow system administrator, then you should be talking more in terms of what you have done as a ServiceNow system administrator, rather than, as a project manager or any other role you've done in the past. They might not be interested in that particular bit. However, there are some subjectivities involved here, which means, for example, if I'm applying for any senior role, right? So in that senior role, apart from the basic skills of ServiceNow or whatever platform I'm talking about, you can talk about other skills also, like team management, like project management, right? People management, because those things are expected from this role also, if it is quite senior in terms of the experience range required, right? So you should be kind of fitting your points that how will this particular experience help you in doing the roles and responsibilities of that particular job role which you are doing at that point of time, or you're applying for that point of time, right? So, for example, you can say, I am XYZ, I am from this city, and I have done ServiceNow for this much amount of time, and I have worked on these different modules, like I've worked on ServiceNow in ITSM, when I say, for example, incident, problem, change, request, knowledge management, portal, CMDB, whatever you have worked upon based on experience, you should be talking about that part in more of tell me about yourself, and then some of your positive traits. Now, when I say positive traits, right, you as an individual should be knowing that what are your positive factors, what are those strengths which you have. For example, if you are a good communicator, you understand people's requirements very clearly, you are able to collaborate with the development team in terms of giving those requirements, explaining them what is expected by when, right? Highlighting anything, whatever you think is important for this particular right time. So if you have communication skills as a strength, if you have project management as a strength, if you have team management as a strength, if you have coding skills as a strength, if you have ability to grasp things quickly, right? Ability to learn new things quickly. So all those things have to be answered or have to be talked about with certain evidences. For example, if I have to talk about, I have excellent communication skills. And I can say that because I have been interacting with the client directly. I have been taking the requirement. There has been no miss so far in terms of the requirement gathering sessions, whatever they expected. That is what I have told the developers ultimately to deliver. So there has been no mismatch in terms of requirement gathering, scoping of exercise. So which means it clearly, and then I have to talk to multiple stakeholders at various stages of the project, which means I am able to communicate. And see, this communication thing, it's not about how do you speak English. That is just one part of it, to be honest. People sometimes get confused that communication skills only means talking in English. How well do you talk in English? You may be good at that. You may be not so good at that. That is fine. But as long as the whole idea of communication is, as long as you are able to talk to somebody in terms of understanding their requirements, as well as you talk to somebody in terms of explaining those requirements, you are able to convey your message to somebody, you are able to grasp their messages, and you're able to highlight the right thing at the right time to the right people. That is where the communication skills really matter, right? Even listening is also a very good communication skill. It is a part of communication skill, other than speaking as well, right? Taking the notes during meetings and then sending those notes to everybody, ensuring that everybody's on the same page. So this is also a part of communication, verbal communication. It is written communication. So you have multiple forms of communication. We will not talk much in terms of uh, how many different parts of communications are there. I'm just talking about an example where I'm saying that if you have certain positive strengths, you should be taking your answer when you talk about tell me about yourself, so that people understand those strengths. You give some evidences of those strengths in your current roles and responsibilities, that how it has been able, how you have been able to use those strengths to your benefit, right? For example, you have excellent project management skills, then you should be talking about that. How were you able to highlight some high level risk items, raid log, and how were you able to manage project in time? So those are the kind of things. Team management. So you might talk about, oh, I have multiple teams from different locations and I understand the different culture. I understand how they should be treated. They should be talked about. They should be talked to. So all those things which you do in real life based on your strengths, you should be highlighting that in that discussion. To a certain extent, you don't need to talk about the entire story there, to be honest, because you don't have much time. Generally, the interviews are for half an hour to 45 minutes. Sometimes they make extend to 1 hour. So you don't have so much of time in terms of talking about everything, whatever you've done. But just you should know your top 3 strengths and talk about that in terms of evidences also. Right. And again, this is quite generic in nature. This is nothing to do with ServiceNow as such. Now, when I say what are your current roles and responsibilities in ServiceNow ecosystem, this is where a person who is completely fresher will have to tell that, okay, yeah, I may not have worked on e-ServiceNow ecosystem practically speaking, but I have used my PDI, I have read a lot of documentations, I have done certifications, I've done a lot of practice sessions. So I have seen certain things and I know what it takes to become a ServiceNow administrator. Now, somebody who has had an experience already in that ecosystem, he can definitely talk about it. For example, if you are applying for a ServiceNow system administrator role, you can talk about that, all those basic capabilities feature in terms of forms, in terms of configuring forms, configuring lists, branding, sorting, filtering, notifications, data schema, CMDB, service portal, request system, whatever you have worked upon. Portal, you can talk about a little bit in terms of what kind of things do you do. You don't need to talk about a particular item you've delivered there. You talk about the kind of things you're doing. For example, are you doing some kind of, you're doing some kind of administration work, you're doing some kind of development work, you are doing some kind of import data kind of work, quite a lot of your day-to-day life. That is one of the answers you can talk about. So, I mean, this roles and responsibility sections, all of these questions are quite subjective because it completely depends on the individual experience. This is where you can just weave your answer around what you do generally in a day-to-day life. And then this is where the interesting part comes in, that whatever you're doing today and the job role you're applying for, it has to match at least 50 to 60%. Because, for example, you've done ABC and you're applying for some XYZ kind of role, then people will ask you that you don't have any experience in that role. Why should we take you in, right? So either there might be a situation that you might have not worked on that role practically, but you still have read so much about it. You've talked to your colleagues, your other seniors and everybody, that you know what it is required to do that role. So maybe because of some kind of passion or inclination towards a certain thing, you're applying for a role which you've never done before. So that could be the answer, that, okay, I am quite passionate about it. I'm quite interested. I think I can contribute more for this particular job role as compared to what I have been doing before. And that is why I'm looking for a change. So there is nothing right or wrong. It is more about that as long as you are able to answer those basic questions, that why are you looking for that particular change, how your current roles and responsibilities will benefit you in the new role, or if there is no roles and responsibilities which you have in that particular system right now and you're applying for it, then you should be telling them, this is why I'm applying for it, because I have a special interest in it. I've learned it. I loved it quite much. I think I know quite a lot of fundamentals in terms of taking it further. And I think I can do these roles. For example, if you were to do a business analyst role, then you can see that I have good communication skills. I have experience in requirement gathering. May not be in ServiceNow. You have done requirement gathering for some other system, but now you want to do it for ServiceNow. That is also a fine. That is also a fine thing, right? You can do that as well. So the point is here in this question of what are the current roles and responsibilities in ServiceNow, you should be quite focusing on your day-to-day activities and what kind of roles do you perform. Do you perform the role of business analyst? You are performing the role of a developer. You are performing the role of a tester. You are performing the role of a project manager. You are performing the role of a architect. Whatever kind of roles you're performing, that is what you can talk about. Now, this is scoped exercise in terms of system administrator role. So people will expect you to tell something that what you do in a day-to-day life for ServiceNow system administrator role. And we just talked about the kind of activities you can do in that role. Now, the next question which comes here is like, do you know about Now platform capabilities? Now, for example, if you're fresher in that area and you've not had any experience real time. So if you're not fresher, then of course you've experienced those things, you've done it, so you can definitely talk about it. But if you're applying as a fresher, then people will ask you, do you know any capabilities in Now platform level which can be used across multiple products? So if you just focus on that part, because the training we have done, the CSA or the fundamentals we've learned, they are equally applicable to all the products in ServiceNow, right? All that assignment rules, all those kind of task management, notifications, forms, lists, all of that. Predictive intelligence you have virtual agent, you have performance analytics, you have coding capabilities. So these are some common capabilities which can be used across multiple products in ServiceNow. So this is where you talk about all those Now platform capabilities. If you're a fresher, and even if you're not a fresher, in that case also they'll expect you to tell them, okay, what kind of capabilities that does Now platform have which can be reused across multiple products. And we just talked about it: workflows, flow designers, virtual agents, performance analytics, notifications, task management, form view, form configuration, list configuration, right? Access control. All of that is used across the instance, across multiple products. So you can talk about all those things there when you talk about Now platform capabilities. Now, the next question is, what is ServiceNow? What kind of platform? How does it help the customers and enterprises? Now, maybe you might have done a basic system administrator role, so you might struggle to answer this question. But if you remember, when we took the first class of ServiceNow, right, overview, we have talked about in detail that how does it help customers and enterprises? Because first of all, ServiceNow is an application, PaaS kind of platform, application platform as a service, which means it has its own platform. On that platform, it has hosted its own applications. There are multiple products, ServiceNow, ITSM, ServiceNow, ITOM, you have HR service delivery, you have GRC, you have SecOps, you have customer service management, you have legal, you have telecom service management. So there are so many different products now. How do they help? Because they help in automating the workflows because of a lot of features, a lot of next generation features in terms of virtual chatbot, in terms of automatic flows, notifications, right? All those things you can automate. You can automate the entire business workflow for a particular unit in terms of optimizing it. And this is where it helps customers and enterprises. Secondly, it is quite aligned to the next generation technology. So it has all the latest things under it. So it is quite scalable as well, right? It is not a legacy platform as such. Plus, it kind of saves a lot of cost for people because you kind of optimize a lot of things there using those business workflows, using those flow designers, right? You can give excellent reporting to customers in terms of taking the right actions. So using the PA, all those calculated metrics or all those history-based metrics in terms of trending. This is where ServiceNow can help customers and enterprises to a large extent. And that is why I think it is kind of number one in its area for a long time. And it has kind of regained its, I would say, the leading status even in the market today. And it is kind of leading in other areas where it has not led before. For example, GRC, checkups, item. It is going quite high in that area also, apart from ITSM. So ITSM, it has been a Garnet leader for a long time, right? So in other areas also, it is kind of acting as a leader because They've understood the reality and they are working on that reality based on the latest technologies in the market. And there's this entire ecosystem in terms of, training people, uh, helping them in terms of understanding and then certifying them. And that is how you can become ServiceNow certified professional also. So overall, this platform automates the entire business need. That is why it is quite easy to do that part. Now, the next question says, what are the different products, application modules you're talking service? Now, very straightforward question. But again, as I said, most of that should be reflected in your profile resume. So you've already mentioned that in your profile. You just need to ensure that whatever you're speaking should match with your profile. You should not say that you are telling now that you're working ServiceNow ITSO, ITOM and ITOM, and you have not written that in profile. People might ask you the question, why have you not mentioned it in the profile that you worked on it, right? So the point here is just think through, take your time, understand, build. When you are building a resume, this is where you have to ensure that whatever products, applications, modules you've worked in ServiceNow, you should be able to note them down on a piece of paper. You should be able to articulate that in your resume, in a profile, and then you should be talking about it. But this is where it gives you an edge as compared to other job applicants, because if you've worked on multiple products, for example, you've worked on ServiceNow ITSM, ServiceNow CSM, ServiceNow ITOM, ServiceNow GA, I mean, number of modules you've worked upon, that will give you an edge, from a competitive edge for clearing that interview, right? Now, there might be a situation when the job you're applying for is for a basic, only for a basic system admin role. That is where they might not need all those different products. But then again, as I said, they generally implement ServiceNow ITSM every time they buy ServiceNow. The ITSM is something you must have worked upon if you're applying in ServiceNow, right? Now, if that particular job role is for CSM specifically, then you might struggle to answer those questions if you have not done CSM before. So, which means that go through the job description carefully, understand what are they looking for, what kind of modules experience they're looking for, and based on that, you articulate your answers accordingly. And if you think you've not worked enough on those things and you might struggle, then maybe prepare for some time and then appear for some other interviews. Or take a chance, see, sometimes they write so many things in JD, but in reality, they might not need all of that. So that happens when you actually discuss the thing. So take that chance, take that risk, go ahead. But what I'm trying to say here is that these things, like kind of modules worked upon, should come directly from your profile. Should be there in your resume, right? So, and you should be talking the same breadth in terms of what is mentioned in your resume. Right? When you say, are you CS certified? Again, this should come directly in a profile. It should be very clearly mentioned that you are CS certified. Yes or no, very straightforward answer. Are you ITIL certified? Yes or no, again, a very straightforward answer. It should be there in a profile by default, right? So these kind of certifications, again, they give you some kind of competitive edge, because if you're certified, then people understand, okay, I don't need to at least talk at a basic level with him. He knows the basics. That is why he's certified. Even ITL, right? So they expect you to be ITL Foundation certified, because, as I said, ServiceNow ITSM is completely based on ITL framework. So they expect you to know basics around incident management, problem management, change management, knowledge management, request management, portal, CMDB, configuration management. So these are the basic things they expect from anybody who's applying for a ServiceNow system admin role, right? So it is equally important to learn and gain knowledge, as well as to do certifications, if you can do that, using your partner portals, using your customer portal, whatever you think you are subjected to, you can do that, right? So the idea is that all of these questions should be there, except tell me about yourself, because this is more of a gist which you give to the person you are giving interview to, right? You cannot actually write, tell me about yourself. So when he kind of goes through his profile and he can understand, okay, this is the kind of guy I think he is. Now, as I told you earlier, that you can always add your own flavor in terms of your strengths and everything else. How will that experience help you for this particular role? All of those things you can talk about. So apart from question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, point number 4 is something which you cannot put in resume. It is a generic question. So point number 1 and point number 4 you cannot put in resume. Others you definitely have to put it in profile, so that people can straight away get those answers, and it should be in sync in terms of your profile. Whatever you're telling, it should be matching with the profile, right? Similarly, you have technical questions, so that we will take some time later. Thank you for now.